My people, some major breaking news from Burkina Faso. Actually, the largest terrorist base has been destroyed in Burkina Faso at Soru Valley. You can imagine all the terrorists who were there have been neutralized and all the equipments have been recovered. And let me tell you, these are the phones they were using. Look at the vehicle, the Toyota they were using actually. Look at all the equipments they were using at that particular place. And let me tell you, this is after Burkina Faso being given 500 troops from China, 500 from Russia, and 500 from North Korea. You can imagine, this is a very great move. And remember, most of these troops were allocated at the northern part of Burkina Faso to ensure that Burkina Faso is on a safer place. I really like what I'm seeing. If they've actually started attacking these terrorists, may God continue shielding Burkina Faso.
Everyone, can I ask you people a question? Who is the best president in Africa right now? Please tell me.
Ibrahim Troare.
Who?
Ibrahim Troare.
Yes.
He's the best and the president.
I want to hear it. Everybody say.
Ibrahim Troare.
All right. Look at that. Yes. All right. What's the name? What was that?
Burkina Faso.
Salute from East Harlem. All right. Cheers, peace.
Y'all see this motherfucker right here? This a good example of foundational black Americans. You know, the people who claim that they started here in America and they reject the African descendancy and the African history. This guy right here is a great example of those kind of foundational people. They turn their backs, and not only turn their backs, but they try to target people in Africa in the name of white supremacy. This motherfucker right here, he is the epitome of what the foundational black American, the organization represents. This here. Because Ibrahim Troare has done so much for the people of Burkina Faso. Ever since he took over the country, he declared that the minerals and the gold and everything was the people's property and not France and not the United States. But this right here, this foundational black American,
Ibrahim Troare, I love you and the people of Burkina Faso. One thing about it, man, when you actually live with a real leader and you respect your president and you're willing to do anything that he needs you to do, that's a different type of energy, Africa. I love y'all. I love how strong this man is. I love how resilient he is. I love how his speeches come out so fluently and so perfect. I love how he see everything that the colonizers been doing and trying to do. I like how he stand up for Africa. I like how y'all building that beautiful hospital. I love the way the stadium look. I like the way that the roads are getting paved right now. I like the way that y'all are doing agriculture, growing y'all own tomatoes, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, man, onions. It's beautiful what y'all got going on. I cannot wait to see what Burkina Faso look like in the next 4 years, because I will be there myself. I can't wait to get my free visa. Other countries gonna charge you. This man is offering us visas to go there. Y'all don't think I'm going? Boy, y'all out y'all rabbit mind. And if anybody on here is not making videos about the greatest president living right now, what were you living at? Where's your mind at? That go to show you. This is why I'm #1 on TikTok, because I understand the real. And one thing about it, boy, look at that man in that picture. That is a man right there you don't want to cross. That young brother right there got a good head on his shoulders, got a beautiful wife, he got beautiful kids, and he's giving his people a beautiful future. Man, I love you, brother.
Captain Troare's response to the US and France is just priceless. It's absolutely phenomenal. In short, he basically says that France was the same country that couldn't even defend themselves during the Second World War and had to go to Burkina Faso and all their colonies to ship people out by force, ship Africans out to help defend France in the Second World War, is today trying to give Burkina Faso a lesson. He's basically saying it's the pot calling the kettle black. France have no right or no standing to give African nations lessons. In fact, the West have no moral standing to give anyone else lessons. You've got Mr. Langley from the USA, who has said, or basically accused Ibrahim Troare of being a cruel, merciless dictator, basically, right? He represents a country that cannot even control its own opioid epidemic, who cannot even control their own homelessness epidemic. They are in so much national debt, but yet they have time to stick their noses into other people's business, into foreign affairs, when they should be turning their noses into their own countries to solve their problems, because the list of problems in the USA and in France are piling up. Why not focus on your own country and your own people? The crime rates in the USA alone, how many people are incarcerated before the age of 21? These things are factors that America and the West need to deal with first before sticking their nose into African business. Even if Ibrahim Troare is defending himself with his own natural resources, even if, so what? So what? What business is it of the West? Donald Trump claimed that Africa was full of shithole countries, but it's the same shithole countries that you can't live without. So yeah, just go ahead and leave our shithole countries alone. The problem with the West is the West wants Africa. They want everything about Africa. The land, the resources, the weather, but they just don't want the people. And there's this innate fear embedded in a lot of Western societies and governments that Africa is going to rise above the West and completely take over as a world superpower. It's the same fear that drives the decision-making processes of the people in power till this very day, which is why they cannot have anybody like Ibrahim Troare leading the African revolution. It's literally a matter of life and death for them. Life and death, life and financial death. This is why we are seeing things play out on the world stage in the way that they are happening right now. It's really, really interesting to watch, but I just wish the best for Africa and its people. We've been through enough. We've been through enough at the hands of foreign powers. We've been through enough at the hands of our own politicians. Enough is enough.
Every time Africa tries to rise, there's always some type of narrative that gets pushed. And this
Betrayer, the Judas among us here in Africa, the president of Ivory Coast, Ouattara, as you can see him with his wife, a French woman. Yes, he got married to a French woman, as you can see. And this lady is still the reason this man is still the president of Ivory Coast today. For 15 years, this man has been ruling Ivory Coast non-stop. And Western leaders are not calling him a dictator for 15 years straight, but they're after Ibrahim Troare for just ruling for 2 years, and they're already calling him a dictator, and he's using Burkina Faso gold to protect himself and his regime. And take a look at this ring. This US General Michael Langley and his soldiers are currently in Ivory Coast right now. What are they doing in Ivory Coast? You know, before, when Western leaders unalive Thomas Sankara through his close friend, they used Ivory Coast. They penetrated through Ivory Coast and unalive Thomas Sankara. Right now, they are still using Ivory Coast to get Ibrahim Troare, which I know they will keep failing. You see, Ivory Coast always produce Judas. Here in Africa, take a look at what is happening. They are penetrating through Africa, which Burkina Faso government said this few days ago, that this coup attempt, assassination attempt on Ibrahim Troare, they penetrated to the same Ivory Coast, and this US general in Ivory Coast right now, he was the one that accused Ibrahim Troare of using Burkina Faso gold to protect himself. That this is a time to take away Ibrahim Troare. He told US Congress. You say what is happening right now? I still don't understand why African leaders are getting married to French ladies. See this man, the president of Guinea, Mamadou. He got married to a French lady, and some of us are still wondering why this man. He took power forcefully like Ibrahim Troare, Assimi Goïta, and Abdulhamid Tiani. But how come they are not friends? He's not getting close to Ibrahim Troare and others. Why? Because he got married to a French lady. And these French leaders, Western leaders, always force our leaders here in Africa to get married to their daughters so they can easily penetrate them, influence them. Take a look at this. In Ivory Coast, their president got married to French lady, and French government are penetrating through them easily. Guinea right now, he got married to a French lady, and they are penetrating through him. French government are still influencing Guinea right now, and this is the reason these guys are not friends. Many of us are asking this question: why are they not friends? You can see the reason, because they are getting married to white women. French government always force them to get married to their daughters so they can easily penetrate them. You know, women, they have power. They can easily penetrate. See what is happening right now. It's high time we ban African leaders from getting married to white women. Our women are here. They can get married to our women. What happens to our women here? You see what is happening. Even Ali Bongo of Gabon, yes, the former president of Gabon that ruled for more than 40-something years, he got married to a white woman, an American woman, and they influenced, they penetrated through that woman. See what is happening right now here in Africa. You can see right now, this man is a Judas, a betrayer among us. Please, Ivory Coast youth, it's high time you guys get up. Get up. Tell your leaders they should stop. Nothing should happen to Ibrahim Troare, because if anything happen to Ibrahim Troare, na serious crisis, so na serious war una go see.
The reason China is so thirsty for Africa is because whoever controls Africa controls the world. Because most of the minerals necessary for a technologically sophisticated society and for a militaristically dominant society, those minerals come from Africa. Yeah. So if you want to be the biggest economy, you gotta control the resources of the continent. If you want to be the strongest military, you gotta control the resources of the continent. Now, there's other reasons why China is in love with Africa and the Caribbean islands. Number one, China is overpopulated. I was invited to speak there twice. Overpopulated. You think rush hour in Miami or something? Go to rush hour in China. It might take you 3 hours to get home. That's why everybody ride bikes in China. Yeah. They don't want to wait in the traffic. So the Chinese man, the yellow man, he needs to be able to unload his excess population. He got 2 billion. We got to get him up out of here. What better place than Africa? Africa. We can spread them all over. So that's one benefit to Africa. I can get rid of all my undesirables. Number one. Number two, I have a surplus of cheap goods. Even though I run the market on cheap goods, I got a surplus of cheap goods. Where can I go and sell these cheap materials and turn a profit? What better place than Africa? And then on top of that, I need some sort of control over the resources of the land in order to make myself a global power. That's Africa. Same thing with the Caribbean islands. Now, the danger of Jamaica coming so close to being called a Chinese colony lies in the fact that most people see Jamaica as the most revolutionary of the islands. So if China can take Jamaica, China can take the whole Caribbean.
Yes, yeah.
They sold the port, very dangerous to do that. They let the Chinese buy that build that east-west highway, north-south highway, and then they gave the Chinese all the money from the tolls. They get to collect all the toll money on this highway for like the next 15 years. Why would you do that? If you're going to pay them, pay them. But here's the issue I got with Jamaica, I got with Africa, I got it with all the black countries when it comes to China. You have universities in Jamaica. You have universities in Africa. Why are you hiring Chinese engineers to come build your roads, build your buildings, create your infrastructure? If you have an engineering program, your students should be building your buildings. Your students should be laying down your roads. And I was in Jamaica last, they told me, they said, Dr. Umar, that the Chinese put this road down right now. 2 years later, it'll be rolling back up like a fruit roll up. They told me it's not even quality. They told me that in Jamaica. They said it's not even, come back in a year, this road will be rolling up like a fruit, like a blunt. You can roll the road up like a blunt, right?
Yeah.
So they're not even using quality material, they're using garbage, and they're getting all these concessions from the Jamaican government, from African government. All this the Chinese is doing, none of it is being done as a handout. It's all loans with conditions. And the Chinese are creating conditions that they know you can't fulfill because ultimately they want the whole country. And then you have the danger, because in most African countries, foreigners can't own land. So the Chinese say, if I can't own land, how do I get around owning the land? Impregnate the women. So in the next 40 years, you're going to have a whole class of Chinese Nigerians, Chinese Jamaicans, you follow me, who have the blood of their mother, but the mentality of their father. It's colonization all over again. And I think when we talk about this whole snow bunny crisis, I think Caribbean governments and African governments need to pass laws that make it illegal for foreigners and immigrants to come in their country and intentionally mass impregnate the black women. They're doing it. You can tell why they're doing it. You can tell. We're going to do this so we can rule this land through our mixed race Chinese African children. Something needs to be done about that. Here's the issue with the Caribbean and Africa. Any country that allows immigrants and foreigners into their land who show up with wealth, who can invest and build, if you do not empower the native Jamaican, the native Nigerian to build in their native land, you can count the amount of years. You can count the years.
The control you're going to
before the Chinese will own it.
Yeah, that's fact.
I'm the president. He's a foreigner. He has his own money. You don't have nothing. You live here. You was born here. This is your land. But he's coming with a line of credit from China. You have nothing. If I don't empower you as a government to build your own, it's a matter of time that he'll own it. We can see a time where there will be more of them than it is us. If you keep on letting immigrants come in, invest, buy land, own land, build industry, and you don't empower Jamaicans, Nigerians, or anyone else to push back and challenge them, you've basically sold your island to them already.
You people, USA, UK and Germany and France, just put it in your head that if you touch Burkina Faso, you've touched Russia. You understand? Just put it in your head. If you touch Burkina Faso, you've touched Russia.
I think it's high time that the whole world comes out to tell us the truth.
what has Africans done wrong? Or better still, what are they afraid of when it comes to Africans? What power or what secret is there when it comes to Africa that the whole world is afraid of? The most antagonized continent is Africa. When it comes to placing the world at different cadres, Africa comes to the least of the least. But yet, the whole world is so much concerned when it comes to Africa, especially when it comes to the liberation of Africa. What exactly is the whole world afraid of? Because looking at the antecedents and looking at what is going on at the moment, we will all come to the conclusion that there are more to Africans than what we think. And I think it's high time that every one of us go out there and do some research. There are lots of things that we need to know being an African. Because what has Ibrahim Troare done? What has he done? Why does he deserve to be unalived? What human rights has he violated? The simple thing that Ibrahim Troare have done is to say no to the so-called help from all these international bodies, and he has the right. It's his country, for goodness sake. So what is going on? Why are they aiming at unaliving Ibrahim Troare? And what is ECOWAS doing at the moment? You know, sometimes I begin to wonder that we Africans are the most enemies that we have. Africans are the enemies of Africans. Ibrahim Troare has escaped numbers of assassination, and yet the whole work is quiet. Nothing is happening. I could say that a number of Africans loved what Ibrahim Troare is doing, and I think good number of his people in his country are pleased with what he's doing. So what exactly has he done wrong that is causing all this chaos? It's high time we began to ask some questions. It's high time that blacks, as we have been called, stand up for blacks and not being the enemy of ourselves. It's high time we begin to look for the legacy that has been stolen from us. It's time we stand and speak, even if our so-called leaders are not ready to speak for us. Congo is there for God's sake. The ongoing war in Congo, the brutality in Congo, none of these international bodies are talking about it. We are not seeing this noise all over the internet. But boom, when it comes to Ibrahim Troare, the whole world rises up. The whole world is concerned. What is happening? I think it's high time we start a challenge to no unaliving Ibrahim Troare. We want him to stay. We are pleased with his governance. Let him lead. Let's see how far he's going to go. Not by unaliving him. Give Africans the chance to make their mistakes. Give Africans the chance to choose who they want. Give Africans the chance to do what pleases them. Let's make our mistakes. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's move on from our mistakes. The whole world should stop being too concerned about us when we know that they aren't really concerned. Leave Africans alone. Let Africans breathe. Shalom.
Ibrahim Troare led a coup against the government that was subservient to its foreign masters. You know, there's been many coups across the continent, but usually those just replaced one neo-colonial agent with another, usually. But Ibrahim Troare is different. He's not just changing the government. He is uprooting the whole system of neo-colonial domination, and he's succeeding. He's understood what many people have failed to grasp, which is that independence is meaningless if you don't sever the control of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. He's understood that security is a myth as long as it depends on the military patronage of your former colonizers. And he's understood that sovereignty is impossible under the shadow of Western tutelage. He's not merely a head of state. Ibrahim Troare is the revolutionary archetype of the 21st century. He was forged in the reality of Western-backed insurgency and Western economic warfare and propaganda. Because, you know, today the fight for freedom is not just waged by armies anymore, but by narratives and by resource policies and by alliances and by collective sovereignty. Troare has made the choice to look towards Russia and Turkey and towards other new centers of power in the multipolar world. That's strategic. Not because they're perfect allies, but because he recognizes the necessity of breaking the Western stranglehold on Burkina Faso. This is pragmatism in service to principle. This again is the methodology of Middle Nation. It's engagement without submission, cooperation without subjugation. It's trade-offs without selling out. He also understands, crucially, that Africa's liberation cannot be rented from outside. It has to be rooted in the reclamation of Africa's own wealth. You know, his moves to exert control over Burkina Faso's gold, building indigenous defense capacity and food sovereignty, these aren't just political decisions. These are acts of civilizational self-respect. It's a declaration that Africa's children will no longer be bled dry for the enrichment of Western imperial capital. We see Ibrahim Troare as a brother, not simply because of his faith, but also because of his fight. Because he embodies the spirit of the Quranic guidance to stand firmly for justice, even if it is against your own selves, even if it is against those who are in power, and even if it is against the odds. Burkina Faso isn't just a battleground today for the Burkinabe people. It's the front line in a global struggle for liberation. What Ibrahim Troare is doing is echoing in the Sahel, in Niger, in Mali, across Africa, across the Ummah, across the global south, and across the world. Every oppressed people around the world can now look to Burkina Faso and to Ibrahim Troare and say liberation looks like it's actually possible. But obviously, the global order trembles at the prospect that anyone is going to follow his example. They're afraid of his courage and his clarity and his defiance in the face of Western power and Western threats, and they should be afraid of that. They should tremble because they know the jig is up. But we know that when they get scared, they get dangerous, and Ibrahim Troare is under severe threat. There's already been something like 20 attempts on his life since coming to power. They just stopped a coup from happening last week, organized by the Americans and by the French, right there in the French embassy. Because a free Africa is just something that old wolf can't take. You know, they've been keeping Africa in the past for so long that they know that if they let Africa get away from them, then they're going to be the ones who are consigned to history. The chains that have been holding Africa down all this time are also the only things holding the West up. So now America has said that they want to arrest him. You know, they've already tried to take him out more than once, like I said. Now they're trying to smear him. They're trying to attack him. They sent the head of AFRICOM to the Ivory Coast a couple of days ago, which is a neighbor of Burkina Faso and which is known to have allegedly anyway participated in the killing of Thomas Sankara. Allegedly they participated in the coups or helped to organize the coups against coup attempts against Ibrahim Troare. And the Western sycophantic leader that was overthrown by Ibrahim Troare is in exile in the Ivory Coast right now. So they're getting ready for something. Understand, Ibrahim Troare isn't just fighting insurgents and militants in the desert. No, every time he has to meet with some Western diplomat or politician or ambassador, he's fighting that same enemy. They're just wearing a suit and tie and meeting in some conference room or some embassy somewhere. But it's the same enemy that he's fighting in the desert. He doesn't have a meeting with any Western official except it's a kind of combat. Imagine. The same ones that are smiling at you from across the table, those are the same ones who are also paying mercenaries to kill you. Listen, this is important. Burkina Faso is important. Ibrahim Troare is important for everyone, not just for Africans, not just for the Burkinabes. This isn't about idolizing the man. It's about understanding the importance of what he represents. And what he represents is a paradigmatic shift that the whole world needs. You understand me? The OCGFC have been on a path of power consolidation for decades, accumulating more and more power in fewer and fewer hands, and leaving almost nothing beyond their control. We are in a struggle against this consolidation. Do you understand? It's a struggle for decentralization. That's the essence of it. That's what multipolarity is. It's decentralization. We need to pursue, protect, and preserve variance.
And I'm saying, brother, we are ready to come and fight for Burkina Faso. Black power! This is the reality of the time that we're living in today.
Sister, you look beautiful. Why are you at the U.S. Embassy today?
Because Ibrahim Troare, Captain Ibrahim Troare, making Africa our equivalent great again.
Well, I'm sorry for language because he's again one of them, you know. But this is not new. It's not old. It's not a new thing. Back in the days during slavery, you always had like that one guy, you know, that was saying, "We initiate," like, "Yes, sir, yes, sir."
He represents the liberation of our people, and of course the Americans and the French and the British and the rest of these Europeans. They are determined to once again try to stymie, try to curtail the movement of the people of God towards our total liberation.
Greetings and welcome to Citizen Era, the platform where we speak truth to power. We are seeing the scene from yesterday's amazing worldwide success announcement that Africa is here. Ibrahim Troare is a man that all Africans, young and old, support. And we tell the Western power, hands off Ibrahim Troare. Do not meddle in the man that's building Africa, building the country. We are saying it categorically and we stand by it. Look at the amount of people there, as far as the eyes can see. And this is in France. And of course you can see the picture of Macron there, hands in head in hands. That is, it's a metaphor. This is clearest evidence of the enormous support that Africans have for Ibrahim Troare. So Western world, we say to you all, listen, go, Macron, hands off Ibrahim Troare.
If you don't know who... While everyone's talking about Ibrahim Troare, about Africa breaking free from old systems, colonial currencies, foreign control, it's probably a good time to ask, what about the Caribbean? Jamaican dollars printed in the UK, Barbadian money made in Canada, independent on paper, dependent in production. And this isn't just symbolic, it's economic, because if you don't control your currency, you don't control your economy. In a crisis, you wait. In inflation, you stall. You're always a step behind, because the tools that power your system still belong to somebody else. And here's the part that no one says out loud. Africa is the business of the world. So is the Caribbean. We export the talent, the raw materials, the culture, the compliance. They export the profits. So when Traore talks about cutting ties, he's not just being radical. He's being strategic, because if you don't own the process, you are the product. And that's the business case.
Ibrahim Troare is, I highly recommend that you pick up some books and learn things about places that you have not been to, but that likely somewhere in your lineage, someone you are related to has helped in the pillaging of that country. As a diasporic African, I would like to just give a word of caution to everybody in the West. Because y'all have had privilege and luxury for a very long time, and you don't realize it, because at the same time, simultaneously, you have also lived in poverty and deprivation. And most of that depravity happens to be in education. You've been heavily deprived of the gift of actual education and knowledge and history and culture. So I want to share with all of you something, because right now, there is still something called NATO. And right now, colonizers still want to maintain power and still want to remain in control of the situation that is collapsing extremely quickly and not in their favor. And as people who are part of the core of the empire, currently I am speaking to specifically North Americans, Canadians, Americans, but even somewhat to some of the Europeans. A lot of African countries have mandatory draft. I need you to think about this. I need you to go online and Google the different populations in Africa. And I need you to look up this, because they have something called a mandatory military draft, where at the very least, most of the capable men of the population are put into intensive military service and training for a period of time, and then remain essentially on reserve if they're called back. And on that note, I'd like you to look up how many successful military missions Canada and the United States were involved in. I'll give you a minute to look it up. You can pause and come back. But if you do some math, okay, and you watch what the West is doing and the threats that they are giving Ibrahim Troare, and the fact that we as Africans are telling you that having been totally screwed over and watching many of our governments get toppled over and over and over, this is not a one-time thing, by Western colonialist countries, and seeing all of us say, united in one, one continent, so multiple countries with mandatory military drafting, okay, military service, seeing all of those people come and say, you fuck with Ibrahim, you fucking with all of us? And I say this as a displaced individual in the West, from Africa. Baby, the West is on the losing side. Big time. And y'all were worried about like double W3 being with Russia or China or whatever. This will include both of those countries and an entire continent. Potentially a lot of Asian countries too. So if you think your letters and your screaming have not been making a lot of dents with your government officials, I think it's time to panic and, act with a little bit more urgency. Because none of y'all are ready for this. Word for the wise.
They killed him. This is the greatest news of the day for all Africans. Niger went from 1 billion a year to 300 billion just by selling uranium. Nigeria could do these things with their mineral resources, the oil. Gabon, Congo, all the African countries can do these things. But why do you think those leaders are not doing? Because they are puppets. Send this video to your friends, those who are supporting those puppet leaders and corrupt presidents in your country and their parties. As we all know, France was in control of most of these francophone countries and their natural resources. Years ago, when Mohamed Bazoum, the former president of Niger, was in power, France was taking uranium from Niger and giving the government only 80 cents per kilogram of uranium. They were selling it at the international market of 200 euros per kilogram. That is madness. And now, we have a new leader here. Tiani took over the government. He kicked out the French companies that were mining uranium in Niger. He also kicked out so many other companies. Now the government of Niger itself is mining uranium. Because of that, they are also selling it at the right price. Now the government is earning 300 billion a year instead of only $1 billion per year just by selling uranium, which means that France is making every year 200 billion more from the back of the African mineral resources, while the same France and the Western countries will come back to our countries that we are helping the poor Africans. You are poor. They will come there, laugh at people, exploit people because of these reasons. Now, you might wonder, why is Nigeria not doing this thing? Why is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the current president of Nigeria, is not doing this thing? Why the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, instead of he also doing these things by arming the Congolese army to the teeth, by working with other countries like Russia, military corporations, to free the country and other countries around the African continent, he is going to the United States to make a mineral deal with America. Did he think that America is going to protect Democratic Republic of Congo or the citizens from the M23? That will never happen. I have said it. M23 Congolese leaders should be willing to talk to those people. They are Africans, even though I do not support them, but they are Africans. That is the only way to save the lives of the Congolese citizens. That is what Congolese president needs to do. But no, he went on to sign a deal with the Americans, basically giving them the mineral rights in Congo. Now, in fact, Congo is going to suffer more and more. But yeah, Nigeria could have done the same thing. The citizens of Nigeria are suffering. Kenya itself, if you look at other African countries, all of them are suffering. Now, these three leaders here, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they kick out the French companies that are enslaving our people. This is why they are able to make a progress. They are also building companies because they cut the imperial ties. So if your country really want to be independent, they should cut off every ties that keep us on chains to be slaves. That is what Captain Ibrahim Troare says. He in fact went on to say that if we ask them to leave because they said we are poor, but they are refusing to leave our countries, and that is something true. Let us watch this video and you guys tell me what you think of this. From $1 billion to 300 billion a year. Guys, this is a great news. Nigerian government, send this video to them, please.
They went from realizing about $1 billion in uranium resources to over 300 billion a year. We need to look at what's happening in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. President Traore is standing up. He is saying the natural resources in Burkina Faso, they belong to the people of Burkina Faso. Niger is doing the same thing. Mali is doing the same thing. Every leader must look at what's happening in the Sahel nations. If I may use the example of what happened in Niger, when the government decided they were going to take over the mining of their uranium. The French companies that were mining the uranium were paying the government 80 cents a kilo for the uranium, and then turning around and selling the uranium to the rest of the world at 200 euros a kilo.
Insane.
So that one move from the Nigerian government to say we are now going to take ownership of our own uranium. They went from real...
They killed Rosa Luxemburg. They killed Che Guevara. They killed Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They killed Hassan Kanafani and George Howie and Mehdi Amil. They killed Chris Hani. They killed Patrice Lumumba and Salvador Allende. Thomas Sankara, which is something I'll never come to terms with. George Abdullah and Ahmed Sadat are rotting in prison, along with so many political prisoners. Pro-Palestinian protesters are being deported. And now they're trying to kill Ibrahim Troare. They've already tried over a dozen times. Meanwhile, a self-proclaimed fascist, a literal war criminal, Itamar Ben Bair, is freely roaming the streets of New York. What is it going to take? Ibrahim Troare needs to be protected at any cost. Any and all cost. Protect this man. For God's sake, protect this man.
And of course, the last thing I want to say before I inflict my speech on you is the issue of leveraging our comparative advantages. The time has come for Africa to unashamedly take advantage of the natural resource endowment that God has given us. In the colonial era, we had colonial masters, we had no say, and so they mined the gold, they took it away, they developed the palm plantations, took the palm oil away, they took the diamonds away, took everything away. And when we gained independence, Nkrumah warned us and said colonialism might have been defeated, but we're entering the era of neo-colonialism. They don't need to bring a governor to sit here, but they still would, from wherever the colonial headquarters is at, control your resources and be able to still derive the benefits as if they had colonized you. And that exactly is happening. Post-colonialism, we didn't have technology. We didn't have capital. We didn't have the human resource. And so foreign companies come and take huge concessions. And they sign it off for a pittance. And they run those, concessions to the benefits of the colonial metropolis. Today, I think that in Africa we've developed a core of human resource that is capable of also taking advantage of some of these resources. We've developed the technology, we have the technology to be able to do whatever any of these big conglomerates are doing. And the capital is available in the world to mobilize, to be able to do the same things. And that is why recently we had a little issue which we have resolved with one of our mining companies whose lease had expired after 30 years. And it was our desire to take it over and use Ghanaian expertise to be able to also exploit that resource and let the benefits remain in our country.
Muammar Gaddafi has lost legitimacy to...
Okay, the video up here that we're about to watch is what happened to late Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, the greatest African leader from late 20th century to early 21st century. He was the only African leader that proposed the name United States of Africa. He also proposed one currency, one passport, and even one army. He challenged Western imperialism. His favorite words were
Africa for Africans. The land of Africa is for Africans. Everywhere. Our land is our land. Everything is our land.
And this is what happened to him. Watch.
Muammar Gaddafi has lost legitimacy to lead and he must leave.
There is a conspiracy to control Libyan oil, to control the Libyan land, and to colonize Libya again. This is impossible, and we will fight until the last man and woman to defend Libya.
We came, we saw, we died.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today, the government of Libya announced the death of Muammar Gaddafi. This marks the end of a long and painful chapter for the people of Libya, who now have the opportunity to determine their own destiny in a new and democratic Libya. For 4 decades, the Gaddafi regime ruled the Libyan people with an iron fist. Basic human rights were denied, innocent civilians were detained, beaten, and killed, and Libya's wealth was squandered. The enormous potential of the Libyan people was held back, and terror was used as a political weapon. Today, we can definitively say that the Gaddafi regime has come to an end.
Okay, so basically what happened was the American propaganda, just like we know them now, tried to paint everything. All you heard Obama say here were lies. But what happened then was we depended on the Western media to tell us what was happening in Africa, unlike now that we have social media. So what happened was the American leader, the first black American leader, betrayed the greatest African leader. I was a kid then. This was in 2011 and I was just a kid. But even people that were grown up then didn't have access to social media like we do now. So we only believed in what they told us without knowing exactly what was happening in Libya. But come to think of it, after they brutally murdered Gaddafi, this liar said that now the people of Libya can now decide their own future, right? Now, Libya is the most disorganized country in Africa. No government, no police, no law, nothing. There is nothing in Libya now. There is no order in Libya right now. But they deceived them and killed their only true leader. And what I want to remind all of us is they have started again. They used a black man, this liar right here. They used a black man then in 2011 I was a kid, but now I am grown up. We are grown-ups now, and we have access to the social media. Now our greatest leader right now, Captain Ibrahim Troare of Burkina Faso, and they have come with the same propaganda through a black man again, labeling him as a criminal, as a squanderer, and saying that he has lost the legitimacy to lead, just like they said in the time of Gaddafi. And now we are all eyes open, we are woke, and we are not going to let that happen. Consequently, in case you have not heard, there will be a march on the 30th of April in every African country, in every African state, on the streets, everywhere. And this march on the 30th of April on all streets of Africa will be a warning to the United States of America to leave us alone. They can find an alternative outside of Africa, but they should leave us alone. They should leave our hero alone. They should leave Africa alone. We are good. We love what we have, and we do not need any help from the United States of America or France. We do not need help from France. We do not need help from the United States of America. We do not need help from the European Union. We are good, and we have what we want, and we can manage it. This march is on 30th of April.
Sure, Langley, can you talk about why we care about what's happening in Africa right now? Why are we spending the money we're spending there?
For access and influence. I say that a number of countries are at the tipping point of actually being captured by the Russian Federation, as they are spreading some of their false narratives across Libya. And from a strategic answer piece, access influence across the whole Maghreb, that is NATO's southern flank. We need to be able to maintain access and influence across the Maghreb, from Morocco all the way to Libya. The PRC and Russia are also remaining exploitative where possible and coercive when necessary. They want that ground. They want power projection capabilities. So for the most part, the rest of the continent is also for mining concessions, whether it be gold or rare earth minerals. Both of them have a long-range plan. But I think at the accelerated pace, the Russian Federation is really trying to take over Central Africa as well as the Sahel.
The problem with Ibrahim Troare is that he refused to have elections. For those of you who don't know who Ibrahim Troare is, but I'm pretty sure you guys know who this man is. He is Burkina Faso's interim president. Interim because he wasn't voted for by the people. He got his power via a military coup, right? This military coup happened in 2022. It was Burkina Faso's second military coup and was overthrowing a previous military coup that was led under Paul Henry Damiba. Now, it's important to note that a country must always be under civilian governance. Military is for protection, not for politics.
What did you gain in South Africa through voting from the ballot box? From the time of apartheid up to now, did you get the lands back? Because lands belongs to the black people. They should get it back. If through voting can give you that, you will get your lands back in South Africa. But no, if through voting can give you your economy back, you will have controlled the economy. But no. So why are you so obsessed with this so-called Western democracy? In fact, if the democracy is for the people, by the people, and for the people, then the people are behind Ibrahim Troare. Then he needs to be in power. If you go to Kuwait, if you go to Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, they do not have elections. They have kings there. So in those countries, the people are behind their leaders. So it is okay for them not to hold an election. Why are you so obsessed that Ibrahim Troare needs to hold an election in Burkina Faso? You see, people like you, they are going to use you to go and unalive your own leaders, to go and unalive your own great leaders, to destabilize your countries because of this so-called democracy. I mean, if through ballot box can give you your freedom, then everyone will get their freedom by now in South Africa. But in South Africa, the educational system is so fucked up in a way that they are in fact making you to hate your own black people. Xenophobic attacks against other African migrants. I recently watched a video whereby a pregnant Zimbabwean lady is being attacked on the street by other females simply because she does not have documents. But you all forget about, during apartheid in South Africa, whereby black South Africans went to other African countries. In fact, so many African countries pull up money together to help the black South Africans. But today, some black South Africans behave that all of these things do not happen. Young man, you are young. It's not late to go and learn. Democracy is the biggest scam in the entire world, and it has been destroying Africa for so long. Forget about the democracy. Focus on, is this leader really working for the interests of the Africans? If yes, then forget about the elections. Forget about all of these things. Election cost money. How many millions of people are suffering in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, in those countries? Why do you think should they spend millions in elections when they can use that money currently to help millions of people that are in need currently? But you are so obsessed with the Western democracy. Young man, open your mind. This is where they are colonizing Africans in 2025. They will use people like you to go and unalive your own great leaders because of the so-called democracy. I want you to look, is he doing good for his people or not? If yes, let him be in power. If not, then let's remove him. He is doing the best for his people. Then let us keep him and forget about elections. That money that we need to pour in elections, we can give that one to our people who are suffering. Now tell me, what has election done for you as a black South African in South Africa? Let me know in the
Major breaking news, you won't believe this. So when France was in control of mining uranium in Niger, Niger used to get only $1 billion per year. But ever since they chased out France out of Niger, now they are getting $300 billion per year. Can you believe this? So this is what Niger president was explaining, that it was the best decision and everyone should do that. Everyone should chase out France out of their country because their revenue, it just went up because they used to pay only 89 cents for uranium. Can you believe this? 89 cents, and then they will sell for 300 euros. This is the same thing, exact same thing they were doing in Burkina Faso. They used to pay 300 euros per ounce, but now Burkina Faso, they are getting 1,300 euros per ounce. So they were just stealing Burkina Faso gold and paying them only $300 per ounce. And now since they started manufacturing their own gold, now they are getting 1,300 euros. And this is the main reason also Ibrahim Troare chased out all the foreign countries out of Burkina Faso from mining, and the mining now belong to the state and Burkina Faso people.